All right, folks, I want to give you the quick disclaimer here that I am not a healthy version of myself. I thought I'd be getting better by today because symptoms started on Thursday. It seemed like I was a little bit better yesterday. The cold has come back full force here on this glorious Saturday morning. So you might hear me sniffling, coughing, whatever. Try to bear with me. I'm doing my best. I promise. I have multiple nasal sprays in, and they can only do so much. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris. Over there, you won't have to hear me sniffle when you read the things that I'm typing. So maybe today's the day to just hang out with me on social media instead. But for those that are diehards that don't mind, this is welcome. This is the week in review show for week 10, period 9. I don't know. The numbers are all screwed up at this point. And we're going to go through everything that's happened over the last roughly 5-ish days and categorize all the players where they belong. In addition, this will be, I think, the last time we do this particular type of show on a Saturday morning. Going forward, because the schedule is much more normal for at least the next month, basically. If we're going to do a show on Saturday morning, it would probably just be sort of a quick Friday night recap type of episode. But these have been going well with the wonky NBA Cup and then the Christmas week schedules. So we'll continue to do that right now. We will begin by reminding you all to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That's very important. I already told you guys to follow me on social media. Drop a 5-star review if you feel so inclined on the old-fashioned podcast listening devices. We start with the injury replacements because these guys, this knocks out the longest list of any of the lists we're going to cover today. That way you guys aren't wondering where some of these names might be when we go through the other boards. I've also, and I rather than put hamburgers all over this page, I just put little up arrows. The up arrows signify my confidence level in the injury replacement name. So the 2-star guys here, if you want to call them that, Goga Bitadze, Ayo Dosunmu, if he comes back before Josh Giddey, Larry Nance Jr. with Onyeka Okongwu out, Bobby Portis with Giannis and Dame out, although actually mere seconds ago, right when we were hitting the record button, Damian Lillard, it sounds like he is being ruled in for the Bucks later on this evening. Their game coming up on Saturday night. So that may change things a bit on the Bobby Portis deal. He's probably still a go, but he might not be a 2-up arrow, up carrot, 2-carat. We're doing carrots here on the show instead of hamburgers. It's a much healthier way to categorize injury replacements. Amen Thompson is a 2-carat guy as long as Dylan Brooks is out. Scottie Pippen Jr. is a 2-carat guy. Ja Morant hurt his shoulder yesterday. That's sort of the big news injury-wise out of Friday night. He is expected to be evaluated in, quote, the next couple of days, meaning if they're not even going to check on him for a couple of days, then he's definitely missing at least one and probably more than one basketball game. Here are some 1-carat guys. Malcolm Brogdon is a 1-carat guy. I think a lot of his value is tied to the lack of Kyle Kuzma, so there's a lot of usage for him to soak up. Royce O'Neal is a 1-carat guy with no Devin Booker and no Grayson Allen. Al Horford, old friend, is a 1-carat guy with no Porzingis and no Drew Holiday for the Celtics. Kelly Olynyk is a 1-carat man because I think his minutes are still capped just a little bit. I don't know that to be the case for sure, but it seems like that's still playing a small role in what's going on. Jakob Poeltl, by the way, was upgraded to questionable for the Raptors game coming up. I think that's tomorrow. So the Kelly Olynyk fun might end before it begins. Klay Thompson is a 1-carat man with Luka Doncic on the shelf. Trayce Jackson-Davis, who, by the way, will also appear in another list. So just this is like the teaser on TJD. Obviously, a play with Draymond Green out. That's sort of, I wanted to get the easy part out of the way. We'll do the complicated discussion in just a little bit. And then Grady Dick is like barely a 1-carat guy. I almost downgraded him to a 0-carat because everybody besides Emmanuel Quickley that could impact him is back for Toronto. But it seems like he's going to get just enough day to day to be a pretty safe stream. The 0-carat guys, and we're going to go through the whole list of them here in just a second. There's a lot of them, and they probably profile a little better as like really good schedule play type of dudes. But I'll throw the names at you because you guys might find them interesting, and maybe there's a sort of a situational spot you could deploy them. But first, BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. They've got the largest selection of odds on everything, from football to the NBA and college basketball, hockey, and UFC. So head to BetOnline today, and don't forget to use the promo code we've got for you right here, BELIEVE, BLEA, Victor, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. 0 carat guys. Dennis Schroeder, Steph was out, although Steph's expected back. It sounded like it was just a rest game. Benedict Mathurin might actually get a bump up to 1 carat because of both Nesmith and Nembhard being out for the Pacers. By the way, if there's weird little pauses in today's show, assume it's me trying to turn my microphone off before sniffling or snorkeling into the said microphone. So Mathurin has a chance to maybe move back up the board a little bit after he's been quite bad in his fill-in job for Nesmith lately. But again, if Nembhard misses any additional time, which it doesn't sound like he will, they called it injury management. We'll see. Kelly Oubre is, I don't know actually how to categorize Oubre because he's not playing all that well with the team fully healthy, but Paul George is always questionable for something. Embiid is always questionable for something. Jared McCain is out for the year. So I just put him here. I put Oubre here as a McCain fill-in because the minutes have been fine. We just need more shots. Trevelin Queen is a 0 carat guy for Paolo and Franz. KCP is a 0 carat guy in the same general bucket. Spencer Dinwiddie and Quentin Grimes are kind of toss-ups right now with Luka Doncic out. Jonathan Kuminga was very good with no Draymond Green, but he's expected back for their next ball game, so just kind of file this one into the Rolodex. TJ McConnell did not perform well with Nembhard taking a day off, but again, just something to think about. Isaiah Collier in Utah with Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson both out in the last ball game was kind of an interesting, like a highly inefficient point guard type of dude. And Trey Lyles, Domantas Sabonis dealing with an illness, perhaps one like the one that I am currently dealing with. And he missed the last one, and Lyles had a pretty good 20-point performance. Although who the hell knows what's going on with the Kings right now because they have a brand new head coach. That was kind of the big news out of Friday, was that Mike Brown got fired. Doug Christie is now the interim head coach of the Kings. And are they going to change the way they do stuff? Are we going to see more Keon Ellis? Are we going to see Malik Monk get shifted back to the bench? I don't know. Here are the ads, and there's a couple of new names on the board, although not that new. So let's go through the repeats just so you guys can remember them. Second week in a row, we're reminding you to add Ben Simmons. Same story for Russell Westbrook if you're a punt free throw build. He's borderline if you're not. Malik Monk, this is basically a full month that he's been on here. He's technically 3 times, but he was an injury play for DeMar DeRozan right before that, so he was already added. He just wasn't on the ads board of this show. Zach Edey's been amazing. Mark Williams is now in his 4th week, as is Herb Jones, Khris Middleton, and Yves Missi in their 4th week here. Those guys are going to get retired to the winner's circle by next week's show, provided that they continue to smash. Williams, Herb Jones, and Middleton, of course, were all injury stash ads. So was Zach Edey just a couple days later. Missi was more of the, he's starting to actually put up some kind of fantasy stats. But the new names on this list are the ones you guys, I think, are probably more interested in. And I apologize. Maybe I shouldn't apologize. I think you guys like when I talk really fast and try to get through the podcast material super, super quick. That's what we're going to do today because my sinuses are not going to hold up for a 40-minute show. So we're going to try to bang this sucker out in 30 or less, and that's going to require us to be very efficient. So Trayce Jackson-Davis makes his appearance on the ads board. Yes, he put up his best numbers with no Draymond Green, but he's playing well even with Draymond around. You could look at the Christmas Day game as a good example of that. They're better when he's on the court right now. He's giving them rim protection that the other options don't give. He's giving them rim running options that the other guys on the team don't give. It's just a different look, and it seems to be improving the team. They're going to want him to play with Dennis Schroeder for pick and roll stuff. And it seems like kind of learning how to play with the starting unit a little bit better. So yes, obviously injury play, Trayce Jackson-Davis, but I think he may have some staying power. So throw him in there as just a traditional ad as well. This next name was one that was just kind of like a little bit of a goof on my part. I kept putting Jeremy Sochan in the strong holds category, but he never was an ad. I skipped a step. That's just a procedural thing. Obviously, you guys know that if I have Sochan on the holds board on these weekly shows, then he needed to have been added at some point. But I never specifically put him on the ads board. So we're just going back and we're like kind of crossing the T's and dotting the I's on some stupid steps that I forgot early in the season. Anyway, Sochan should have been on teams a long time ago, but I'm finally getting him in there just to make sure that we sort of do everything in the proper order here on the program. And the last new name on the list is Donte DiVincenzo. And he's an interesting one because he was drafted in most formats. I forget where we had him on our draft buckets board, but I'm pretty sure that he was he was like in the third group of flyers, I think. Where did I have Donte? Where are you, DiVincenzo? No, he was actually right before the Flyers. I wasn't high on him. I had him down, with like the Mike Conleys of the board, but he was above the like when you get through the name brand guys, and he was quite bad. But I was willing to move on. He's outside the top 200 for a while. He didn't look like he was going to do anything. And so, all right, like you got to toss to the scrap heap in basically every single league, and for good reason. He was very, very bad. But over the last couple of ball games, he's been better. And certainly in the last one was kind of like the big wake-up call game. 4 of his last 5, he scored in double figures. 4 of his last 5, he's had 3 3-pointers or more. The only one he didn't was a 19-minute effort that was in their loss at Atlanta. It's not that he's necessarily making them better right now. Certainly one of the big things with Donte is that he's shooting the ball well over this last, whatever you call it, week and a half or so. Not great, but certainly way better than it was earlier in the year. But he does have fantasy upside. 3-pointers, steals in particular. He's going to get some assists because he's playing a little bit of point guard. I mean, not true point guard, but you get it. And so there's a stat set, and the reason that most analysts, I think, took a little bit of a plunge on him was seeing, all right, like all he really needs is 26, 27 minutes, and he can be at least Golden State Donte DiVincenzo, which is hovering around the edge of the top 100. And maybe that's what we're getting right now. But with Minnesota sucking for nice long stretches so far this year, that's the upside. The upside is they decide that he needs to be a part of what they're doing to win basketball games. And so then they play him 28, 29 minutes instead and see how that goes. And that pushes him up to 95, 90, 85, whatever. And guys like that just aren't floating around on the wire right now. That could actually be like a top 80 guy if things break right. If, it's a big if, because, if Conley has a good game or Gil Alexander-Walker has a good game or whatever. Also, the Wolves have been very healthy so far this year. That doesn't feel like a thing. I always say this every week, and it hasn't really changed yet. But if anybody starts to go down for that team, he's a big potential winner as well. Quick update on a prior hold. Got some questions on whether or not you should be, or prior ads, I should say. I got a couple questions on what you should be doing with Yves Missi. He's a hold for me. He hasn't been great of late. He did have a nice set of blocks in their last ball game. Where is he sitting over the last 3 weeks? He's number 90 over the last 3 weeks, which again, he's not blowing the roof off the building, but it's good enough. And good enough is good enough for me. Here's the running list of winners that we've collected on these weekly shows so far. From week 1, Christian Braun, Dyson Daniels, Bilal Coulibaly. From week 3, Tari Eason, PJ Washington, and Shaedon Sharpe in a punt build. From week 5, DeAndre Hunter, although we had him and then dropped him. So either way, I've been notably high on Hunter, which I thought was kind of taking a stab at a guy that, anyway. Andrew Wiggins is in there as an ad on the show, and then Alex Sarr is an active stash. I added him to this board because I think he's going to end up as a win, and I just don't know where else to put him. So yeah, maybe he doesn't belong here, but whatever. Let's get into the time to hold guys. These are the stronger hold names. PJ Washington got ejected, so don't worry about that. We already talked about Missi. Devin Vassell is actually a buy low, but so obviously a hold there. Drew Holiday hurt his shoulder, but it looked like he was actually just starting to ramp things up a little bit. Jonas Valanciunas, who keeps bouncing back and forth between my worry board and my hold board. He's on the hold board right now because he's had 2 or 3 decent ones here. Colin Sexton, he's putting up some big numbers with no Keontae George. Isaiah Stewart is probable, which leads us to the Jalen Duren. It's time to sell. You have like a couple of hours to get it done now, but he's a hold, certainly. You just want to sell him. Jabari Smith Jr. is a hold, certainly with Tari Eason out. He's been a much more reliable play. Waiter talked about Christian Braun earlier. Yusuf Nurkic is a hold, despite him starting a fight and probably getting suspended. He's been better leading up to that. And then obviously, I don't even know why Amen Thompson is on this list. You guys are going to watch me eliminate his. That was a relic from a previous episode that forgot to get wiped out. He's been awesome this week with no Dylan Brooks. So that was dumb, Dan. Time to worry board. Naz Reid is very close to incurring my wrath and finding himself on waiver wires. I'm just trying to hold a little bit longer, mostly because, again, like, Rudy Gobert's been bad. Naz outplayed him in their last game. The Minnesota bench is what won that last game for the Wolves. And again, Rudy hasn't missed any games, and Julius hasn't missed any games, and Jaden McDaniels hasn't missed any games, and Ant hasn't missed any games. Any one of those guys. I'll take any one of the 4. Just getting a cold, and Naz Reid can pop off. Clint Capella's back to cooled off. He was cold. He was hot. He was cold. NBA players, specifically the ones that land in that flyer territory, which is where Capella is, those guys are not good every single game. They have hot stretches. They have cold stretches. Dennis Schroeder, very much time to worry. I'm going to try to give him a little bit longer. Steve Kerr came out in a presser, was like, look, we know what this guy can do. We're providing him 0 spacing at all to do it. If we could hit some 3-pointers, you'll see Dennis Schroeder play better. I'm going to go ahead and try to roll with the optimistic Steve Kerr on this one and give him a little bit longer. D'Angelo Russell is probable for the Lakers after spraining his thumb a couple of days ago. He missed the Christmas Day victory. And he could actually have a really nice game if any of, I think, LeBron, AD, and Rui Hachimura are all questionable with various things, illnesses and ankle sprains and shoulder hurts and whatever. You get a little bonus D'Lo there. That would make it a little easier. I am trying my best to hold on to D'Lo as long as possible. We've made it this far and a bad season. I mean, let's just go another couple of weeks and see what comes next. And then Daniel Gafford, who had a big game because Derek Lively wasn't there. Sell, much like Jalen Duren. Abandon ship if you can. Here's the cut list. Most of these guys were our holdovers from prior weeks. Those holdovers are Cason Wallace, Mike Conley, Bogdan Bogdanovic is actually one of the new names on this board. I should skip over him. We'll come back to Bogdan. So Wallace, Conley, Jonathan Isaac, and Robert Williams are basically impossible to hang on to right now. Marcus Smart, Okongwu, Wendell Carter Jr., and Dalton Connect. These guys have all been relatively easy decisions on cut, with the exception of Conley. But he's just not doing enough. New names on the cut board. Justin Champagnie in Washington. He had a crazy, amazing run when everybody was out, but most of those guys are back. There were 4 dudes out for the Wizards, and 3 of the 4 have returned. In 1 week, they all came back at the same time. That's a bummer, man. He was playing well. And then Bogdan Bogdanovic, who, and I've said it on these shows before, so stop me if you've heard this. I just don't think he's healthy. I don't think anybody thinks he's healthy. And we have no earthly way of knowing which direction his health is going. Something about the wind is blowing. Yeah, we're doing Willy Wonka here. The thing with Bogdan is, like, it's not like an ankle sprain where it's just going to get a little better and all of a sudden he's going to be okay. He's dealing with this weird leg thing. There's sort of a degenerative element to it, and it could take the whole year. It might take an off season to get him right. If he shows signs of waking up, we'll get the hell off of this and we'll pivot hard. But right now, he just doesn't need to be on a roster. Taking up space. the watch list. This is always kind of like the fun, near the end of the show sort of part. Because the last page is one that pretty much doesn't change. Andrew Nemhard is on my watch list. Yes, he took that last game off for injury management, but he's kind of turned himself into this weird. Well, honestly, he plays from a fantasy standpoint, not reality, but from a fantasy standpoint, his lines look a lot like TJ McConnell's without the steals. More scoring, fewer steals. Andrew Nemhard on the year right now is averaging 14 and 5 on 54% from the field and 91 at the free throw line. And you guys know me, I love guys that have good percentages. But he doesn't shoot the three ball like McConnell. And he doesn't get steals, which is the unusual thing. He's only at 0.4, and he's never really been a big steals guy. Still, I think, in a lot of teams, you could make the argument that he does belong on them, but it kind of has to be the right build. You need to be probably punting threes. That would make it, that's sort of the easiest one for him because he's only at, 1 3-pointer a game from that point guard spot. Punting steals would also be helpful just to make life simpler, but you don't have to punt both. In full starters minutes, I think we expect him to this is, by the way, we're looking at his numbers over the last month, so not the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, he did significantly less than that, but maybe he's been coming on a bit. But last year he was at 50% shooting, so it's not insane to think that he could just replicate that or even get the tiniest bit better. He's a good field goal percent guard, but he doesn't hit three-pointers. He just doesn't. It's not in his game. His steals are low-ish, probably a little better than they've been the last 3 weeks, but the field goal percent probably be a little bit lower than that as well. So if you need some points, not a ton, and some assists, not a ton, on good percentages, then he fits. But if you need more traditional guard stats, like, more threes, more steals, that kind of stuff, then he doesn't. So I didn't really know where to put him for this show, so I put him on the watch list. But again, you could make a very reasonable argument that he belongs on the ads board for a punt threes team. Like we could redo it here in real time if you guys want that. I'm just not that confident that he's going to keep up the pace he's on, so that's why he's on the watch list for me instead. The entire Brooklyn Nets is the next thing on the watch list. Shake Milton, Keon Johnson, Noah Clowney. The list goes on and on and on and on. I don't know that any of these guys necessarily need a spot on your roster, especially because Cam Thomas apparently is not that far away from coming back. A couple of them got loose. Noah Clowney got so loose he got ejected. Shake Milton had a big game with Ben Simmons sitting out the back-to-back. It's a whole scene out there. And right now, it's probably best avoided. Clowney is the safest of the weirdos on the Nets because it seems like he was getting more minutes kind of regardless. And the guys that are standing in his way, namely Dorian Finney-Smith being the big one, is markedly on the trade block. Lonzo Ball is a holdover from last week. He's probably a permanent watch list guy, so we're not going to go too far down that one. Caleb Martin had a big ball game, but that's kind of what it felt like it was. Denny Avdia, and kudos to all of you guys who are watching our stash show and astutely pointed out that I listed all these Blazers and I forgot to list Avdia. And you guys are so right. Avdia should have been probably like, oh no, he was on that list. Did I do it in real time? I did. I did it in real time, right in the middle of the episode. He could be a big time winner in the second half of this season if the Blazers either trade or shut down Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons getting out of the way. Avdia is a really interesting, he's okay right now, pretty much sitting in that 100 to 150 zone permanently. Fluctuates up when his field goal percent is on a good run, fluctuates down when it's not. So you guys get it. It's the same thing with everybody else in the NBA these days. But if they clear out a path for him to play 30-plus minutes and actually be kind of like a point forward, that's where he could really win. So Avdia, he's a watch list, but he's also kind of an active stash type of player. And listen, he's way over-rostered based on what he's done so far this year, which is top 150. But keep a close watch on that. And then Alex Caruso's, I bumped him all the way to the bottom of the watch list because he's dealing with a hip thing again. Dude just can't stay healthy, and the Thunder weren't playing him very much even when he was. This is the same as it was a couple weeks ago. This is a stream when hot group. Obi Toppin, he's hurt right now. Jaden McDaniels, KCP, Santi Aldama, who's been hot the whole year, so that's just been one decision. Jordan Clarkson, he might be the most up and down guy on this board. Lou Dort, who, boy, when he's cold, then you're talking about like 3 rebounds and a steal. Buddy Hield, I don't think that one's going to happen anymore because we're past the honeymoon period. It always happens with Buddy. There's like 2 great weeks on a new team, and then they realize that he sucks at a lot of elements of basketball. Karis LeVert, that one's really more to look into if Garland or Spida have to miss some time, although Ty Jerome played pretty well last time that happened. And then Malik Beasley, who started the year ice cold, and he's been pretty damn good for about the last 4 or 5 weeks in a row. So he's on a pretty good heater, and that's what those guys do. And that's your show. We managed to do it in under 30 minutes, which is great because I've got like this pile of tissues on the table in front of me that I just keep wiping my nose with mid-episode. And I did my very best to try to keep you guys from having to listen to it. But there isn't a whole lot I can do with the video part of this show. You guys are going to see me wiping my nose, even if I turn my microphone off, like so. But we got through it. I don't think it sounded too gross to you, and I appreciate you guys all bearing with me on that front. This is Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. I am Dan Vespers for the network, the whole network, which, by the way, we're in talks with some new talent. Get some new shows cooking here over on the YouTube channel and maybe some traditional pods as well. Want to keep growing. If you guys are interested in being part of the Old Man Squad Sports Network, you do not have to be an old man. You just have to be interested in drafting them onto your fantasy team. That's the only actual rule here. It's not true. There's no rule. All we want to do here is give everybody a platform and have some fun in the process. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for dropping those reviews. Thanks for hitting that like button. Let's put a pin in this one. Until tomorrow, we'll be back with your Week 11, Period 10, again, whatever the crap you want to call it, show. That'll be dropping on Sunday. And Week 11, ladies and gentlemen, is super normal. Every single day next week has either 6, 7, 8, or 9 games. Same story with Week 12. Man, it feels good to be back to a regular schedule. Again, I'm Dan for Old Man Squad. I'll see you guys tomorrow.